In his recent joint address to Congress, President Trump made a bold declaration.
The cartels are waging war on America, and it's time for America to wage war on the cartels.
Not only did he call for designating cartels as a foreign terrorist organization, a move that could allow full-scale military action, but reports also revealed that restrictions on U.S. airstrikes in special operations have been loosened. This means military commanders no longer need White House approval to carry out attacks outside of official combat zones. And now, another major development. The Pentagon has dismantled its Civilian Protection Center of Excellence, an office designed to minimize civilian casualties in military operations. All of this raises serious questions. Is the U.S. preparing for cross-border strikes into Mexico? Could this lead to cartel retaliation inside U.S. cities? And what does this mean for preppers who need to be ready for the fallout? Welcome to Preppers News, where we cover global events from the prepper's perspective. We bring you the facts you need to stay informed. Due to an injury, my own voice is difficult to understand, so this video is narrated using a computer-generated voice. Trump's statement marks a major shift in how the U.S. government approaches cartel violence. By comparing these groups to ISIS and calling for their designation as a foreign terrorist organization, he's signaling that this is no longer just a law enforcement issue, it's a war. If cartels are officially labeled as a foreign terrorist organization, it could open the door for military action on a much larger scale. This wouldn't just mean increased border security or enhanced cooperation with Mexican authorities. It could mean direct U.S. military operations against cartel targets, either across the border or even within cartel-heavy areas inside the United States. Mexico's government has repeatedly pushed back against any suggestion of U.S. military involvement on its soil, calling it a violation of sovereignty. But with Trump's new policy approach, the U.S. may no longer need permission. If cartels are treated as foreign terrorists, military action could be justified under counterterrorism policies, similar to how the U.S. has conducted operations in the Middle East and Africa. That brings us to the next major development. Trump has loosened restrictions on U.S. airstrikes and special operations raids outside of official combat zones. Under the previous policy, military commanders needed direct approval from the White House before launching these types of missions. Now, they have the authority to act on their own. This means that if U.S. intelligence identifies a cartel target, a drone strike or special forces raid could be carried out without waiting for political approval. It streamlines decision-making, allowing for faster responses, but it also increases the risk of unintended escalation. If this policy shift is laying the groundwork for military action against cartels, the question is no longer if the U.S. will act, but when and how. The Pentagon has also begun dismantling the Civilian Protection Center of Excellence, an office responsible for minimizing civilian harm in U.S. military operations. This decision raises serious concerns about how future conflicts, including military action against cartels, might unfold. With less oversight, the risk of civilian casualties increases, whether in Mexico, near the border, or even in cartel-heavy areas inside the U.S. Cartels operate within populated areas, using civilians as shields and blending into local communities. Without dedicated oversight on civilian harm, airstrikes or special operations raids could lead to unintended casualties, escalating violence and political fallout. Domestically, the risk isn't just from mistaken military actions, but also from cartel retaliation. If they see these strikes as an existential threat, they could target law enforcement, infrastructure, or civilians. With these policy shifts, decisions about collateral damage now rest more with military commanders in the field. If military action against cartels moves forward, preppers should be prepared for the fallout, because the consequences won't be limited to Mexico. If this situation escalates, preppers need to be aware of several potential consequences. A military campaign against the cartels wouldn't be a quick or easy fight, and the fallout could be severe. One of the most immediate concerns is cartel retaliation. These organizations aren't just criminal gangs, they're well-armed, well-funded, and deeply entrenched on both sides of the border. If they feel backed into a corner, they won't hesitate to strike back. That could mean more violence in Mexico, but also direct attacks inside the U.S. Cartels have influence in major cities, and we could see targeted assassinations, bombings, or coordinated attacks against law enforcement and government agencies. Then there's the issue of border chaos. If U.S. military action disrupts cartel-controlled regions, it could trigger a mass exodus of people trying to escape the violence. That means overwhelmed border towns, a surge in asylum claims, and the potential for stricter government crackdowns on movement across the border. At the same time, supply chain disruptions could follow. Mexico is a major trade partner, and anything that affects trucking routes, fuel supply, or manufacturing operations could have ripple effects throughout the U.S. economy. Another possibility is a greater military presence inside the United States. If cartel violence spills over, federal and state governments could respond with National Guard deployments, increased surveillance, and possibly even temporary lockdowns or restrictions in high-risk areas. While a full-scale martial law scenario isn't likely, a heightened security presence in certain cities and along the border is a real possibility. Whether this turns into full-scale military action or remains a political maneuver, preppers should take this as a warning sign. The situation is shifting fast, and if the U.S. moves forward with a military campaign against the cartels, the fallout could be widespread. Keep an eye on how this develops, especially if reports start emerging about military movements, cross-border operations, or increased cartel violence. If things escalate, supply chains, border stability, and even security in U.S. cities could be affected. What do you think? Is military action against cartels the right move, or could this spiral out of control? Let me know in the comments. If you found this video useful, make sure to like and subscribe to stay updated on news that matters to preppers. Thanks for watching Preppers News. See you next time.